World War II was the darkest hours known to mankind. The ineffectiveness of the League of Nations, the world body established following the First World War, called for a stronger global consensus. Out of the ashes of 50 million lives lost and the global devastation arose the United Nations. With the end of the World War in 1945, 50 nations, including the United States, United Kingdom, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics and China, met in San Francisco on the 25th of April to draft the first United Nations Charter. In 1951, Sri Lanka made its presence felt at the foundation of the United Nations with a historic speech by then Minister of Finance J.R. Jayawardena at the San Francisco Peace Conference.
That hatred ceases not by hatred, but by love.
Sri Lanka obtained membership of the United Nations on the 14th of December 1955 and has become an active member of the United Nations, setting an example within the developing world. Prime Minister SWRD Bandaranaike was the first Sri Lankan head of state to address the United Nations General Assembly.
We are marking 70 years of the United Nations and 60 years of Sri Lanka in the United Nations. And we have embarked upon a significant campaign, 70-60 we call it, Our UN, Ape UN, Angle UN.
United Nations has partnered with Sri Lanka throughout the last 6 decades for the development and socio-economic well-being of the island nation. However, Sri Lanka is not only a beneficiary of the United Nations interventions, but also a key contributor to the UN. Beginning from 1960, Sri Lankan troops have served in Congo, Haiti, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Sudan, Western Sahara and Timor, and today Sri Lanka is a leading contributor of troops to the UN peacekeeping operations. Ranasinghe Premadasa, former president of Sri Lanka, successfully proposed to the United Nations to declare an international year of shelter for the homeless, which was declared in 1987. In 1999, the UN General Assembly unanimously adopted a resolution moved by the late Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Lakshman Kadragamar to celebrate Vesak Day as a United Nations Day of Observance. Sri Lanka played a key role in the issue of children and armed conflict in the World Summit Outcome document of 2005. In 2006, then Secretary General Kofi Annan appointed Dr. Radhika Kumaraswamy as Under Secretary General, Special Representative for Children and Armed Conflict. Her term ended in 2012. Honorable J.R. Jayawardena, former President of Sri Lanka, proposed the first ever United Nations General Assembly special session on disarmament against nuclear weapons, small arms and the arms race into outer space. Jayantha Dhanapala was hand-picked by then Secretary General Kofi Annan as the Under Secretary General for Disarmament Affairs.
I was very fortunate to have had Mr. Kofi Annan as my leader at that time and to be a part of his senior management group. We had a small budget, but within that I made full use of the funds given to us. So all in all, I think the period that I served the UN was very valuable in placing Sri Lanka's role in the UN at a high level, as well as helping us to strengthen the norms which the UN has established in arms control and disarmament.
Sri Lanka made valuable contributions to the development of international law, underlined by the contributions of Judge C.G. Veeramantri.
So I was there for 9 years as one of the Asian judges. And during these years, we had some very important cases. Perhaps the most important case ever to come before the International Court was the case where the General Assembly sought the opinion of the International Court of Justice on the question of law regarding the legality or otherwise of nuclear weapons. Now, in that case, I wrote a dissenting judgment, a very strong dissenting judgment, saying that nuclear weapons are totally illegal in all circumstances whatsoever.
Dr. Mohan Munasinghe is another key Sri Lankan contributor to the United Nations.
One of the highlights that I remember is my work with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, where I have worked since the inception in 1988. I'm very proud to have been the vice chairman of the IPCC and also shared the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize.
United Nations champions the participation of young people, and Sri Lankan youth have been at the forefront of global development dialogue.
I was selected as the last year's UN Youth Delegate to represent Sri Lanka in the 2014 General Assembly. My role as a youth delegate was to represent the voice of young people in Sri Lanka at the UN.
As the world body celebrates its 70th anniversary, Sri Lanka is strengthening the partnership and playing an ever-enhancing role within the United Nations.
එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ සංවිධානය ආරම්භයේ සිටම උත්සාහ දරනු ලැබුවේ ලෝකවාසී මානවයාගේ ජීවිත පැවැත්ම වඩා තාර්කික අර්ථවත් සහ සමෘද්ධිමත් කිරීමයි. මෙවර මහ සභාවට ඉදිරිපත් කරනු ලබන තිරසර සංවර්ධනය මත පදනම් වූ පශ්චාත් 2015 සඳහා වන සංවර්ධන න්‍යාය පත්‍රය සහ ඒ සමග ඉදිරිපත් කරනු ලබන විශ්ව ක්‍රියාකාරී සැලැස්මට ශ්‍රී ලංකා රජයේ පූර්ණ සහාය හිමි වන බව මා මෙහිදී ප්‍රකාශ කරන්නේ ඉතාමත්ම සතුටින්. ඒ අනුව 21 වන සියවස තුළ ගෝලීය පාරිසරික සංවේදී නව ශිෂ්ටාචාරයේ පෙර ගමන්කරුවෙකු ලෙස අධිෂ්ඨානශීලීව කටයුතු කිරීමට ලෝක ප්‍රජාව ඉදිරියේ මා ඉතාමත්ම පැහැදිලිව ප්‍රකාශ කරමි.
We as United Nations colleagues working in a humble way have been partner in your journey for the last 60 years. We remain committed to walk the future path with everyone, with all the people in Sri Lanka in this journey to a very prosperous, peaceful Sri Lanka.